I was sitting on my porch on a Tuesday evening, the kind of quiet evening that old men like me learn to appreciate. I'm 67 years old. My name is Harold Eugene Watkins. Most people in my neighborhood just call me Mr. H. I'm a retired postal worker. I spent 31 years delivering mail in Fort Worth, Texas, walking streets, learning people's names, watching neighborhoods grow and change. I never made a lot of money, but I raised my children with everything I had. My wife, Dorothy, God rest her soul, she passed 4 years ago. Breast cancer, and when she left, she took a big piece of me with her, but I kept going, because that's what fathers do. They keep going. I have 2 children, my son Marcus, who lives in Dallas, and my daughter Renee, my Renee. She was the joy of my life. She had her mother's eyes, dark brown, warm, always smiling. She used to sit on my lap as a little girl and say, "Daddy, when I grow up, I'm going to take care of you." And I would laugh and say, "Baby girl, Daddy's going to be just fine. You just take care of yourself." She married a man named Darius Cole about 7 years ago. I had a strange feeling about Darius from the beginning. He was charming, too charming, the kind of man who shakes your hand and smiles at your face while his eyes are looking somewhere else entirely. But Renee loved him, and because I loved Renee, I accepted him. They settled in Fort Worth. Darius worked in commercial real estate. He wore expensive suits and drove a big car and talked about money like it was water, always flowing, never ending. Renee worked as a school nurse. She was humble, quiet, giving. I visited them every Sunday for dinner. Or at least I used to. About 2 years into the marriage, the Sunday dinners stopped. Darius said they were too busy. Then the phone calls got shorter. Then Renee started sounding different on the phone, quieter, more careful with her words, like she was thinking about who might be listening. I noticed. Fathers always notice. But I stayed quiet, because that's how I was raised. You don't push yourself into your grown children's homes. You wait, you pray, and you stay ready. That Tuesday evening, I was sitting on my porch drinking sweet tea and watching the sun go down over the rooftops. My phone rang. I looked at the screen. It was a number I didn't recognize. Fort Worth area code, but not a number I had saved. I almost didn't answer, but something, and I still can't explain it, something made me pick up. "Hello." A woman's voice came through, shaky, nervous, like she was doing something she wasn't supposed to be doing. "Mr. Watkins, my name is Angela. I'm a nurse at Harris Methodist Hospital in Fort Worth. I'm calling about your daughter, Renee Cole." My heart stopped. "I need you to come, sir. Please come as soon as you can. She's in the ICU. She's been here for almost 18 hours. And, sir, she's been asking for you. She keeps saying, 'Daddy.' Sir, I'm calling you on my personal phone because no one else has come. No one has come to be with her. I don't remember standing up. I don't remember walking inside. I don't remember grabbing my keys. But the next thing I knew, I was in my car, driving down the highway toward Fort Worth, and my hands were shaking so bad I had to grip the steering wheel with everything I had. 18 hours. My daughter had been in the ICU for 18 hours, and nobody had come. I called Marcus as I drove. He answered on the third ring, his voice groggy, confused. "Dad, it's almost 9 o'clock. What's wrong?" "It's Renee," I said. "She's in the hospital. ICU. I'm on my way there now." There was a silence. Then he said, "What? Since when?" "Since yesterday morning, Marcus. Since yesterday morning, and nobody told us." I walked into Harris Methodist Hospital at 9:47 that night. I still remember the sound of my shoes on that hospital floor. Click, 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 like a clock ticking down. The nurse at the front desk directed me to the ICU on the 4th floor. I rode the elevator alone. An old man in a worn jacket and old shoes, holding his hat in his hands, trying not to cry before he even knew what he was walking into. When I stepped off that elevator, A young nurse was waiting for me. She had kind eyes. She walked toward me and said softly, "Mr. Watkins, I'm Angela. I'm the one who called you." I grabbed her hand. "Thank you," I said. "Thank you for calling me." She gave me a look I'll never forget. It wasn't just sympathy. It was something heavier, like she had seen something she couldn't quite put into words. She walked me to Renee's room, and when I stepped through that door and saw my daughter, Lord, she was lying there in that hospital bed, hooked up to machines that beeped and hummed and breathed for her. Her face was swollen on one side. Her arm was in a cast. There were bruises around her neck, dark, ugly bruises. She looked so small. She looked nothing like the Renee I knew, the one who used to laugh so loud it echoed through my house on holidays. The one who used to burn the cornbread and pretend she didn't. The one who called me every birthday and sang off, "Guy," and made me feel like the luckiest father in the world. She was sleeping, but when I sat down next to her and took her hand, her eyes fluttered open. And when she saw me, when she saw my face, she started to cry. No sound, just tears rolling down her swollen face. "Daddy," she whispered. "I'm here, baby," I said. "Daddy's here." She squeezed my hand, weak, but she squeezed it. Angela, the nurse, stepped outside to give us privacy. But before she left, she paused at the door. She turned back and looked at me with those same heavy eyes. "Mr. Watkins," she said quietly, "the police have already been here. They took a report. The attending physician documented everything. But, sir, someone needs to be here for her. She needs family." I nodded. I understood what she wasn't saying directly. She left, and I sat with my daughter and held her hand, and I didn't say anything for a long time. I just let her know she wasn't alone anymore. After a while, when she seemed a little more settled, I asked gently, "Renee, baby, can you tell me what happened?" She closed her eyes for a moment. Then she said, barely above a whisper, "It wasn't an accident, Daddy." My jaw tightened. "He came home angry. He'd been drinking. We argued about money. He said he was tired of being tied down. He said—" She stopped. Swallowed, he said I was nothing, that I had always been nothing. I sat very still. "He pushed me down the stairs, Daddy. I hit the wall at the bottom. I tried to crawl to my phone. It took me a long time. I called 911, and then I passed out." She opened her eyes and looked at me. "He never came to the hospital, did he?" I shook my head slowly. A tear slid down her cheek. "I know where he is," she whispered. "He's with her? He's been with her for over a year. A woman named Cassandra. I found out 4 months ago. I told him I wanted a divorce. That's when everything got worse. I did not raise my voice. I did not slam anything. I did not curse. I just held my daughter's hand and breathed slowly and steadily, the way you do when you are a man who has learned that the loudest thunder doesn't always bring the most powerful storm. Marcus arrived at the hospital around midnight. When he walked into that room and saw Renee, he broke down. He's a big man, my Marcus, broad shoulders, deep voice. But that night he stood in that doorway and cried like a little boy. We took turns sitting with her through the night. Around 2 in the morning, Marcus stepped out into the hallway and called Darius. I stood near the doorway and listened. "Darius, it's Marcus, Renee's brother. I'm at the hospital right now. Your wife, my sister, is in the ICU. She's been here since yesterday morning. Where are you?" A pause. "What do you mean you didn't know? The police came to your house, Darius. They told you. The hospital told you." Another pause. "Longer, you know what. Don't bother. Don't you dare come up here now." Marcus ended the call and stood in the hallway with his fists clenched. He looked at me. His eyes were red. He said he thought she was fine. He said he had prior commitments. Prior commitments. His wife was lying in the ICU with bruises around her neck and a broken arm. And he had prior commitments. I didn't say a word. I just walked back into Renee's room and sat down beside her. Now, let me tell you something about silence. People mistake silence for weakness. They see a quiet old man, and they think he has nothing going on inside. They think he doesn't feel things. They think he doesn't see things. But some of the most dangerous men in the world are quiet men who have been pushed too far and have decided very calmly and very deliberately that it is time to act. I was one of those men. I picked up my phone and I made a call of my own. You see, 31 years of delivering mail in Fort Worth means you know people. Real people, not celebrities or politicians, just people from all walks of life. People who went on to become lawyers, accountants, city workers, police officers, business owners. One of those people was a man named Raymond Acaffer. I used to deliver mail to his family's house for 12 years. Watched that boy go from riding his bicycle in the driveway to graduating law school. He became one of the best criminal defense attorneys in Tarrant County. More importantly, he knew everybody in the justice system, and when I called him that night, it was almost 3 in the morning. He answered, "Mr. H, is everything all right?" "No, Raymond, everything is not all right, but it's going to be. I need your help." I told him everything. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, there was a brief silence. Then he said, "Mr. H, you stay with your daughter, take care of her. Let me make some calls." "Raymond," I said, "I want to do this right. I don't want to do anything that hurts Renee or puts us on the wrong side of things. I want to do this the right way." "I know you do," he said, "and that's exactly what we're going to do." What happened next took time, weeks, but I want to tell you about it because every single step matters. Renee was in the hospital for 11 days. During that time, I slept in the chair next to her bed every single night. The nurses brought me coffee. They let me stay past visiting hours. Angela, the one who first called me, she looked after both of us. On the 3rd day, a Fort Worth police detective named Sandra Flores came to take Renee's full statement. Renee told her everything, the push, the argument, the history of verbal and emotional abuse that had been building for 3 years. Renee had never reported any of it before, because Darius had convinced her that no one would believe her, that she was the problem, that she was unstable. That is what abusers do. They make the victim doubt their own reality. But Detective Flores was thorough, and here is where the story takes a turn that I did not expect. When the detective began pulling records, phone records, financial records, the kind of deep digging that happens when a case gets serious attention, they found something that had nothing to do with Renee's fall. They found something that made my blood run cold and my heart go completely still. Darius Cole had not been in real estate for the last 2 years. Not really. Yes, he had a real estate license. Yes, he had an office with his name on the door. But Raymond, who had quietly connected me with a forensic financial investigator named Howard Baines, discovered that Darius's real estate business was a front, a very sophisticated front. He had been laundering money, not small amounts. We're talking millions of dollars run through fake property transactions, fake escrow accounts, fake renovation contracts. The money belonged to a criminal organization operating between Fort Worth and Houston. And Darius Cole, the man in the expensive suit, who sat at my dinner table and called me sir, while looking right through me, was one of the key people moving that money. Howard Baines laid it out for me on a Thursday afternoon in a small conference room at Raymond's office. Charts, account numbers, transaction records, properties that existed on paper, but not in real life. I sat across that table, and I looked at all of it, and I thought about Renee. I thought about 7 years of her life given to this man. I thought about her lying at the bottom of those stairs, crawling to her phone. I thought about the bruises around her neck. And I made a decision. I said, "Raymond, Howard, what do we do with this?" Raymond leaned forward and folded his hands. He said, "Mr. H, we take it to the FBI. Here is something I've learned about men like Darius Cole. They believe that because they have money, because they have connections, Because they have a smile that works on most people, they believe they are untouchable. They walk through life with a kind of arrogance that comes from never facing real consequences. Darius had pushed his wife down a flight of stairs and then gone back to his mistress. That tells you everything you need to know about how untouchable he believed himself to be. While Renee was recovering, I watched Darius from a distance. Raymond advised me not to contact him, not to confront him, just let the process work. This was hard for me, very hard, because every instinct I had as a father wanted to stand in front of that man and make him answer for what he had done to my child. But I kept quiet. I stayed calm. I focused on Renee, and something beautiful happened in that time. Renee got stronger, slowly, painfully slowly, but she got stronger. On the 8th day in the hospital, she sat up in bed and ate a full meal. On the 9th day, she asked me to bring her a book. On the 10th day, she asked to see her phone. On the 11th day, she walked to the window with a little help and stood there for a few minutes, looking at the sky. "Daddy," she said quietly, "I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner." "Baby," I said, "you don't owe me any apology, none at all." "I was ashamed," she said. "I thought people would think I was weak." I walked over and stood beside her at that window. "Renee, the strongest people I have ever known in my life were people who survived things that would have broken most people. Your mother survived things. She never talked about them much. But No, strength isn't about what you stop from happening. It's about what you do after it happens. And you're going to be all right." She leaned her head against my shoulder. "What happens now, Daddy? You heal," I said simply, "and you let me handle the rest." 2 weeks after Renee was discharged from the hospital and moved in with me temporarily, the formal investigation into Darius Cole was well underway. Raymond had connected the forensic findings to a federal prosecutor named David Kim, who had been building a case against the larger criminal network for almost 3 years. What we handed them was, as David Kim later told Raymond, the missing piece. Darius Cole's transactions filled in gaps in their case that they had been trying to close for months. The arrest came on a Wednesday morning. I know this because Detective Flores called me personally to tell me. She wasn't required to do that. She just did it because she was a decent human being who understood that a father deserved to know. "Mr. Watkins," she said, "Darius Cole was taken into federal custody this morning at 6:45 a.m. I was standing in my kitchen making oatmeal. I put down my spoon. I closed my eyes. I said, 'Thank you, Detective.' 'There's more,' she said. The DA office is also proceeding with the felony assault charge for what he did to Renee. We have the medical documentation, her statement, and witness testimony. That trial is separate from federal case, but both are moving forward." I said, "God bless you." She said, "God bless your daughter, Mr. Watkins. She's brave." Now here is where the story gets even harder to believe. Because what came out during Darius's arrest and the subsequent search of his property revealed layers of this man's life that not even I, in my worst suspicions, had imagined. In a locked safe in the home office of the house where my daughter had lived, the house with the stairs she had been pushed down, investigators found evidence of other crimes. Financial fraud against individual clients, forged documents, and records that suggested Renee had not been his first victim of domestic violence. There had been a woman before Renee, a woman in Houston. She had filed a report 3 years before Darius married Renee. The case had been dropped when she mysteriously withdrew the complaint. My daughter had never known. When Renee found out, she sat very still for a long time. Then she looked up at me and said, "He would have killed me eventually, wouldn't he?" I could not lie to my child. "Yes, baby," I said quietly. "I think he would have." She nodded slowly. "Then I'm alive because a nurse had a good heart, and because you came, you're alive." I said, "Because God wasn't finished with you yet. Now I have to tell you about a part of this story that I haven't mentioned yet." A part that still stings, even now. Darius had family in Fort Worth. His mother, Patricia Cole, was a church-going woman who lived about 20 minutes from the hospital where Renee had been lying alone. Patricia knew about the hospitalization. She had been told she never came. Darius had 2 brothers. Neither one came. There were cousins, friends, people who had come to Renee and Darius's wedding and eaten food and danced and smiled and called Renee family. Not a single one of them came to that hospital. And here is the part that hurts me most as a father to admit. Even some people on our own side, distant relatives, people who knew Darius professionally, people who thought he was successful and charming and a good man, some of those people started whispering that Renee must have provoked him, that she must have done something, that there were 2 sides to every story, 2 sides. My daughter was at the bottom of a flight of stairs with a broken arm and bruises around her neck, and people were looking for 2 sides. I want to say this plainly because I think it needs to be said. One of the most painful things a family can experience is not just the attack itself, but the quiet, cowardly betrayal of people who choose the comfortable story over the true one. I stayed quiet. I did not argue with these people. I did not call them out publicly. I did not send angry messages or make scenes. I had learned by this point in my life that the truth does not need my help to stand up. It stands on its own. You just have to give it time, and time, as it turned out, was on our side. The criminal trial for the assault charge came first. It lasted 4 days. Renee took the stand. She sat in that witness chair, my girl, my baby girl. And she looked at the jury and she told her story. Every detail, clear, calm, and true. I sat in the front row of that courtroom every single day. Every day, I wore the same blue suit that I had worn to my wife Dorothy's funeral. Because Dorothy deserved to be there with us, and I wore that suit so she could be. Darius's attorneys tried. They suggested Renee had fallen. They questioned her memory. They brought in character witnesses who said what a good, upstanding man Darius was, how much he contributed to the community, how this was all out of character. But the medical evidence was overwhelming. The forensic analysis of the injury pattern was clear. The angle of the fractures, the distribution of the bruising, the medical experts testified that the injury was not consistent with a fall. It was consistent with being pushed from behind, from above. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. They came back with a guilty verdict on all counts. When the verdict was read, I heard Renee exhale beside me, a long, slow exhale, like she had been holding her breath for 7 years and was only now, in this moment, finally allowed to breathe. I put my arm around her. I did not cheer. I did not say anything. I just held my daughter and let her breathe. The assault conviction alone carried a significant sentence, but the federal case, the money laundering, the fraud, the organized crime connections, that was something else entirely. The federal trial took 3 weeks. I was not in the courtroom for most of it. Renee didn't need to relive all of that, and I stayed close to her. But Raymond kept me informed every step of the way. The verdict came on a gray Thursday morning, 6 months after that Tuesday night, when a kind nurse called me on her personal phone. Darius Cole was convicted on multiple federal counts. The sentencing hearing took place 2 weeks later. I was in that courtroom for the sentencing. The federal judge, a stern woman with silver hair and sharp eyes, looked at Darius across that courtroom and spoke for nearly 15 minutes before delivering the sentence. She talked about the scope of the crime, the damage done to victims, both financial victims of the fraud and the personal victim of the domestic violence. She talked about premeditation and pattern. She talked about the woman in Houston. She sentenced Darius Cole to 40 years in federal prison. 40 years. He would be in his late 80s, if he lived that long, before he breathed free air again. I watched his face when the judge said it, and I want to tell you something. I expected to feel something triumphant. something like victory, but what I actually felt, sitting in that courtroom, was something quieter than that. Something that felt more like grief, not for Darius, no, not for him, but grief for the 7 years my daughter had lost. Grief for the woman in Houston whose complaint had been silenced. Grief for what evil is capable of hiding behind a charming smile and an expensive suit. And beneath that grief, deep beneath it, something warm, something that felt like justice, like the universe had finally, at long last, balanced the books. After the sentencing, things got very interesting. Patricia Cole, Darius's mother, the woman who never came to the hospital, she called me. She called me personally, said she wanted to talk, said she was sorry, said she didn't know how bad things were. I sat in my kitchen, and I held that phone, and I listened to her talk. And when she was done, I said, very gently, "Mrs. Cole, I appreciate your call. I truly do. I don't carry hatred in my heart for you, but I want you to understand something. When that phone rang and you chose not to come, that was a choice. When your sons chose not to come, those were choices. The thing about choices is that we have to live with them. I hope you can find peace, but my daughter is healing now, and she's going to be all right. And that is all I have to say." I hung up. The people who had whispered that Renee must have provoked him, some of them reached out too. Apologetic, embarrassed, looking for some kind of absolution, I treated them all the same way, kindly, calmly, briefly, because I had learned something important during all of this. Forgiveness is not the same as reconciliation. You can forgive someone without letting them back into your life. You can wish someone peace without sharing your peace with them. There is a difference between bitterness and boundaries, and I knew which one I was choosing to carry forward. Cassandra, the mistress, she fell apart completely when the federal investigation began. It turned out she had known some, though not all, of what Darius was doing. She had accepted gifts, money, vacations that were funded by criminal proceeds. She faced her own legal consequences, though far less severe than Darius. She lost her job, her reputation, and eventually moved away from Fort Worth entirely. Renee did not gloat about any of this. She is not that kind of woman. She is her mother's daughter. She just kept healing, kept going to her therapy appointments, kept going for walks in the morning, kept eating dinner with me on Sundays. It has been over a year since that Tuesday night. Renee is living in her own place now, a small, bright apartment on the east side of Fort Worth. She decorated it herself. Yellow curtains, plants on the windowsill, a bookshelf along one wall. She went back to work at her school 3 months ago. The children are glad to have her back. She told me that one of her students, a little girl, maybe 7 years old, ran up to her on her first day back and hugged her around the waist and said, "Miss Renee, we prayed for you." Renee held that little girl tight and did not cry until she got to the car. She called me that afternoon and told me the story. And I sat on my porch, the same porch where I had been sitting when that phone rang 14 months ago, and I let myself cry a little too. Good tears this time, the kind that cleans something out rather than just empty you. Marcus comes down from Dallas twice a month now. We have Sunday dinners again, the 3 of us. Sometimes Raymond joins us. Sometimes Angela, the nurse, who became Renee's friend over the months of recovery, comes by too. We talk, we laugh. Sometimes we're quiet together in the way that only people who have been through something real together can be quiet. My daughter is not the same woman she was before all of this. She is different, but not lesser. She is like a tree that survived a bad storm. Some branches are gone, and the shape has changed, but the roots are deep, and the growth that comes after is stronger than what was there before. And as for me, old Harold Eugene Watkins, 67 years old, retired postal worker, widower, father, I am at peace. Not because everything was fair, not because justice undoes damage, not because any of this was easy or quick or clean, but because I did what a father is supposed to do. I showed up. I stayed quiet when quiet was right. I acted when action was right. I used the tools God gave me, relationships, patience, the truth, and I trusted the process. I never threw a punch. I never shouted in anyone's face. I never made a scene that would embarrass my daughter or compromise the case against the man who hurt her. I just showed up, and I stayed. If you are a father watching this right now, or a mother, or a son or a daughter, I want to say something directly to you. The people in our lives who love us most are often the quietest ones. They are not the ones who call every day and talk the loudest. They are not always the ones who have the most money or the most status. They are the ones who show up when the phone rings at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday night and drive to the hospital with shaking hands because they would rather be anywhere next to you than anywhere else in the world. Do not mistake someone's silence for indifference. Do not mistake someone's quietness for weakness. And please, please, do not let the chaos and busyness of daily life cause you to take for granted the old man on the porch, or the old woman in the kitchen, or the parent who sits in the corner at your events and just watches you with pride they can barely contain. Those people are your foundation, and you do not know